Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Second Opinion Sports Medicine Podcast. We have a special guest in today. I'm Dr. Dokel.
I'm Dr. Glass.
And today we have with us Mr. David Weck. David, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, thank you.
I really appreciate you coming in. I know you're local, San Diegan, and my old office wasn't far from yours. But, we didn't get to see each other as often as I would have liked because I always see you innovating and doing things online. You're way better at posting things and just showing people what you're working on than most people. And that's important when you're doing some, I think, revolutionary things.
Yeah, it's sort of my process, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm constantly exploring. It's just a relentless pursuit of better.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy putting out the information for free because really at a fundamental level, it's a paradigm shift in terms of just what constitutes balanced locomotion.
Right.
And so when I invented the BOSU ball, I said to myself, I want to be the world's foremost expert on the subject of balance measured by locomotion, so that I have an objective lighthouse on shore that is time. So we know for certain whether we're making progress or we're not. And what I discovered in that process is that really fight and flight are two sides of the same coin. And fight is a very subjective aspect, whereas flight is 100% objective. 958 Usain Bolt is 958.
Yes.
And with that objective measure, the best that any human being can do to actualize their own full potential is to find maximum efficiency upon which they can operate and utilize what God gave them.
I love it.
So to the extent that and I just call balance coordination.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's very task specific, but just walking and running are the fundamental basics.
For most athletic movement, right? You have.
Well, I think just for they are the foundation for everything, and then your steps removed for certain other activities.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say locomotion, I'm also speaking about brachiation, and I'm also speaking about swimming. So you sort of have the aerial. You have the fluid, and then you have the terrestrial, just walking and running, being the basics. And it's really core-driven movement, spinal engine theory from Grakovetsky and his book Spinal Engine, with the idea being that in the buoyancy of water, all an organism really needs to do is side bend. But as soon as you come out of the water, you have the burden of gravity, and that's when you have to prop yourself up. And that's the three-dimensional, the reptilian strategy would be this, and then the mammalian potentiates more with that sagittal uplift, and the mongoose beats the snake.
Mm.
Let me ask you this, because
Can we go back for a second?
Sure.
I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
But this is so many good nuggets, right? I don't know you, so I want to get a little more background on where you've been, like how you got to this point. So this was a good little
we dove right in.
Yeah, this was great. Dove right in. I'm like, holy crap. So I love it, but I want to know kind of your background. I want to go back kind of history-wise, and I want you to take me kind of from your uprising all the way till now. If you can give us a little chronological
Sure.
Even you growing up, and where the twists and turns were, that guy that got you to this point.
That's what I was going to ask too, is because what you describe when you speak that way is very nuanced, and for someone who studied it, it makes sense, but I have to pause and really think about what you're saying and make sense of it to me.
Gotcha.
And so my question, really along the lines of what you were saying, is what made you interested in that?
I think athletics always drew me in, and I was very precocious as a child, and so I learned things quickly and I excelled at things quickly. And when I was 6 years old, I lost a foot race, and there were two older kids who just beat me in a race, and I just didn't compute, and I then soon thereafter figured out that I'm not the best at anything. So no matter what athletic endeavor there was or is, I'm not the best.
Yeah. Always somebody bigger, faster, stronger.
Well, I'm Division III college football and track. And I joke and say, because there is no Division IV.
Right.
So really what it was I football was my passion. I loved it so much. 8 years of intense football, high school and college.
Mm-hmm. Where'd you grow up?
Madison, New Jersey.
New Jersey, okay.
Yeah, so Jersey kid. I went to Williams College in Massachusetts. And I basically had to come up with my own strategies to compete with the bigger, faster, stronger. Mm-hmm. And so I used my head to play football. And I studied a lot of game film. Mm-hmm. So we had a really unbelievably excellent coach, the head coach, and he was my positional coach. He actually played for the San Diego Chargers way back. Mm-hmm. And studying game film gave me the ability to locate my keys and reads, and then specific to the opponent as far as, down and distance, the circumstance, what are they likely to do, and then what can I see from the way that they're lined up. And so I was able to read plays very quickly.
Were you which side of the?
I was defense, and I started on the corner, and then I moved to the safety position. Cool. So I was thrust into the starting role as a sophomore at free safety. Nice. And our defense was, we called the audibles, and the defense, we called them. Mm. So the coach taught us how to call the defenses.
That's awesome.
And you need to know it like faster than thought. Mm-hmm. Because, it's cover 3. Oh, now it's 3 cheated. Oh, it's cover 5. Oh, now we're moving to 2. Mm-hmm. So whatever the circumstance, and it has to be that fast.
Yeah.
So it was, when I came up as a freshman in college, I saw the playbook, like the defensive playbook, and it was just Greek to me. I mean,
did you feel like it was going to take you forever?
I never thought, I just looked at it, I was just like glazing over, sure. Right? And then thrust into this, and I was playing cornerback where, you just do what you're told. Yeah. And then being put in the safety position, I really had to learn it. Mm-hmm. But it was film study that really got me, I guess. I still have a record on the books up at Williams College 35 years later.
There you go. That's great.
But I was really good at intercepting the ball because, if I know the tight end's coming down or coming across, because I know, mm-hmm. I saw it, during the week. Oh, yeah. Now I can pretend I don't know, mm-hmm. Bait the quarterback to throw it, and then, step in just in time. Yeah. So that film study was principally X's and O's of the game. And then once I graduated, the film study, video analysis really became about the biomechanics. Mm. But it was that skill set of, and it was in college, it was 16 millimeter black and white for my first 2 years before it went to color video with the dial that you turn.
Now you're going home with an iPad.
Well, right, exactly. And I was studying the biomechanics before it was simple. Mm-hmm. So you had to record it off a television and or a computer. And then the breakdown, like I was breaking stuff down on VHS tape, which is extremely cumbersome. Yeah. But now with the software that, you can do frame-by-frame analysis, you can screen record something. And I really look at that as, my coach would say the eye in the sky does not lie. Mm-hmm. And as long as it's not reality TV that you're cutting and editing, then, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And you can sort of notice the simple cue that I use for balanced locomotion is just head over foot. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going straight, the most balanced you can be is to get you coil the core, so it's not this braced rigid thing. Mm-hmm. You coil the core, it's a 3-dimensional movement where the shoulder coming down and back facilitates the hip coming up and forward. And then when you land it, you're right on it in balance. And so you're delivering clean force that's not getting stuck in the body. Mm-hmm. And now you're capturing that force that you've delivered and boom, boom, boom. And, come to learn, well, yes, in fact, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
Because you ran track as well?
Yes, I ran track.
So I did too, but only on a high school level. Mm-hmm. But that's not how at least my coach, that's not how they teach you to run or how they want you to.
No.
But I found it fascinating when you picked out examples of that type of running. It's all the people that you and I admire, like Ricky Henderson, Barry Sanders, Deion Sanders. Yep. And so walk us through that a little bit,
Yeah, there's a lot of dogma in terms of just, running mechanics. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the great examples is Michael Johnson, who was one of the greatest sprinters of all time. And he said that he kept his head still. Like, he didn't move his head. And when you look at it from the side, that's what it appears to be.
Gotcha.
But as soon as you take the vantage point from the front or the back, now we can see what's really happening. But the front view, you can't tell who wins the race. You can't look at the acceleration angles. You can't really look at the stride length. So there's a lot of information. You need both vantage points, but you need technology to get a front end view.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, you need a telephoto lens because otherwise you can get run over.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
that's true. Good
So,
point.
so, and there's a lot of people that, you go back 20, 30 years when guys like Michael Johnson were learning and training. I mean, they weren't utilizing video analysis the way that we can now. So what I did was I said, okay, balance is the priority, and that's just economy. Because if I'm not balanced, there is a compensatory protective tension somewhere in the body compensating for the imbalance.
Right.
And I like to think of tension can either be productive or it can be protective. And protective is the priority.
Interesting.
So I mean that the nervous system, it's not going to let you fall if it can do it. Right? So I think a guy like Michael Johnson was probably just given the cues, okay, brace yourself, keep yourself still, 90-90, cheek to cheek, the conventional sort of instruction. But his athletic intelligence was superior to the intellectual understanding. So he's given the cue to stay still. He's doing this, but in his mind, he's doing this.
Right.
So he can't give the internalized cue to somebody else who might not have that athletic intelligence. And so for all he knows, he's defining what he's actually doing as being straight and still. And so, I mean, it's just, you can look at the video.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay, this is actually what's happening. And then if you sort of understand the mechanics of the body, which, again, I invented the BOSU ball, and that gave me...
What year was that?
1999.
Okay. I do want to ask you questions.
Yeah, well,
about
I mean,
that as
what
well,
it did was, I worked very hard for a number of years, 3 years to get it off the ground. And then I licensed it strategically so that I could
Let's go back
study.
real quick. Sorry.
Yeah,
I don't want to interrupt. But 1999, what were you doing prior? So we ended college.
Yeah.
And then what were you doing when did you graduate college?
I graduated college in 92.
92, so from 92
So from
to
92 to
what were you
2002. Well,
and what did you study in college? Sorry.
Political economy.
Okay, perfect.
So basically, it's a very excellent academic institution, and it's a feeder for Wall Street, for consulting, for high money jobs.
Gotcha.
And so I had worked the summer, my junior summer, I worked on Wall Street, cover my ass with honors grades, but my passion was football.
Got it.
And every year in college, the next year you don't have to think, because after freshman year comes sophomore year.
Sure.
So I don't really have to think about much. But then when that great blue ocean of I'm going to graduate came, I'm like, okay, do I really want to work at the bank?
Yeah.
And the answer was no. So rather than, trade my time for money, I said, all right, well, I'm going to dive into acting. I had a friend who did this little independent film called Clerks that blew up.
Wow. Yeah,
and
great
so,
movie,
I was like, I'm working at the bank and he's acting. And so I said, all right, well, I'm just going to right turn here and become an actor. And to survive, pay the rent and eat the food, I became a personal trainer. And so that's what I did in New York City pursuing acting. I was either acting, auditioning, training acting, or personal training.
Cool.
So that was how my time was divided.
A lot of hats.
A lot of hats, but it was all geared toward the acting.
Yeah.
So I got an independent film that was down in Atlanta, and I lived in Atlanta for 6 weeks.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked certain aspects of it. I really enjoyed. Right before I invented the BOSU ball, I was starting to contemplate, okay, how much longer am I going to give this? Because financially, I made $40,000 as my best year as an actor. Right, that was my best year.
Yeah.
And it was, every year just do a little bit better, and had some close calls to get some big things. But I'm grateful that I didn't land a big one, because what had happened was I fell in love with rollerblading. And it was 1993. I'm in Manhattan. I'm in Central Park. I had just had a knee operation to clean up a football injury with the meniscus. And I'm literally the day after surgery in Central Park.
So like mid-20s or something?
Yeah, I'm 23 years old at the
Got you.
time.
Yeah.
And I see, I see the rollerblading. It was really in vogue back then. And I see these guys and they're jumping over trash barrels.
Wow.
And they're jumping over like 14 trash barrels. And I'm just like, oh, I need to do that.
Yeah.
And I literally went and got a pair of skates the next day. So I started skating on a surgically repaired knee.
Yeah, that's
like
tough.
Before it was better, I was skating. And I fell in love with it because of that effortless power. Like you don't have to work very hard and you just get to float and fly around.
Now, am I wrong? Because there is some of that.
Yes, very much.
That, right?
Hockey. I mean, hockey is a big coiling, activity.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So we call the unilateral side the coil, and then when you jump to the other side, that's the rotational movement. But then we also have bilateral torsion. So we have this internal torsion and the external torsion. And then I can cross torsion, where like this one can be coming here, and I can coil this one here. So I can really map space with the coiling core training, the bilateral torsion training, and then the rotational movement training is the summation of those two parts. And then I also create a cardinal coordination where I created a thing called rope flow in 2004. And it was because I had the royalty income from the BOSU ball that it didn't matter what day it was. It didn't matter anything. I could do what I wanted to do with my time.
It's a beautiful thing, right?
I mean, it's a gift. It's the American dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what I did was I just dove deep into movement training. And then I really started studying the martial aspect of movement. I'm not a very big, strong, or fast guy. But I've trained myself that my structure can be arranged very quickly and very effectively. So, like, I don't make a fist like this. I make a fist like this. This here triangulates the bone structure, and I have a I've trained these things with millions of strikes, and right now I've dove into jiu-jitsu, and I'm just coming up on my first year of jiu-jitsu. But I enjoy striking. Is really my the sweet science, but very dirty. I'm not looking to box, stand there, hit, and be hit. I'm looking to just demolish. Right, hit something vital, and
that's not very safety-like.
Well, I mean, it's safer actually.
No, but like as in positionally, it's very safety of you to.
Right, exactly.
Destroy.
Well, I mean, right now with my movement capacity, skill-wise, and my understanding of the body, like I think that if I had this when I was playing football, I mean, I could hurt people. I almost wouldn't want to play the game because now you can. I mean, you're going to give me 6 yards to line a guy up and balls up here.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I could just, destroy somebody now. Whereas before it was just, the instincts and, playing a game where you didn't have that trained intensity and just that sort of concentrating everything down to the infinitesimal.
Yeah.
And when in movement training, what I coach is I coach the infinitesimal intent. So it's not infinite intent because that ends relatively quickly. But if you know how to rotate everything in your body around one infinitesimally, infinite spiral, now you can concentrate force and make it so much more powerful with those little tiny millimeters. And what I say is when you reach the end range of motion, the end range of intent is never reached. So the intent concentrates it. And it's millimeters and milliseconds in athletics.
Sure.
So, just that millisecond differential is the difference between, getting hurt and not getting hurt, winning and losing. And today you see this epidemic of non-contact injuries.
Yeah, we were talking about that as well.
And my theory on it is that the athletes are bigger, faster, and stronger than ever before. Right? I mean, across the board.
Agreed.
But in 2007, the consensus was reached that the priority for athletic programming and training was core stiffness, and the ability to keep your spine rigidly neutral was the number one priority.
According to who?
Well, according to the National Strength and Conditioning Association,
Gotcha.
the CSCS, the Journal of Strength and Conditioning, the science,
Got
right?
it.
There was a movement for more core-based movements where everything was trying to center down, right?
Well, and it was based on this philosophy. What happened? It's very simple. They just simply conflated the axial loaded core function, where you don't want the spine to change position, right? You really want to brace it and lock it in, and boom, so you can deadlift and bench press and squat a lot.
Which makes sense.
Yes, and I'm a proponent of stronger is better, provided you can use the strength. And so deadlifting is a big part of what we do.
Yeah.
But we also modify them with different, sort of lines of intent to create the carryover effect that we want. Because I don't care about agnostic is the input. I care about the output.
Right.
So they conflated, the science. They conflated this idea that I need to brace my core because they were lifting weights and caring about that. And then they conflated that with movement. And they created an exercise called the Palloff press, which, if you understand martial movement, you know that you do not want to be uprooted. So if I'm bracing myself stiff in a 50-50 stance and there's a transverse force coming here and I'm just decreasing my leverage advantage of it, I'm training the nervous system to now be uprooted. Where, you hit a baseball by coiling the core and getting your body into it with that. You don't do it like this.
Sure.
And so that became sort of that epitomized the highest level of core training was you need to brace stiff again. Create the least mechanical advantage that you possibly can and get very strong at that. Now, you're programming your strength, the neural synapses and the engrams that your body will do reflexively to now uproot. Okay, well, what does that do to me in live action play when I'm not getting hit?
Which is not practical either, that you're so upright and stiff.
Well, it makes absolutely no sense if you just step back and sort of look at it from a broader perspective, and you don't have that myopic, the peer review. Because the peer review is worshipped by the peers. And to conduct a study in this peer review, the first thing you must do is review the peer review. And anything outside of that circle is anecdotal, so therefore it's dismissed. It has no bearing for us because it's not science at that point.
But then a bunch of evidence piles up.
And then you get these preposterous statements from the best in the business that the time it takes to reposition the limbs at top speed is the same for everyone. Well, on a treadmill geared to that person's capacity, yes, you're correct. Now, you're wrong in the sense that the fast sprinter is crossing the knees before ground impact, and the old lady running is landing with their legs, the one way back here. So, okay, reposition the limbs. Let's define fast and slow. But you could be at any bar, having dinner with a landscaper and say, hey, does everybody take the same amount of time to reposition the limbs?
It's all different.
And he's just going to look at you like you're stupid. No, the fast kid's moving faster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, it's textbook theory that that you can feel very solid about your information, and I think there's a lot of pressure upon people. They don't want to look stupid. They don't want to feel stupid. So if I can pressure you with, the peer review and impose this, great wrath of, you're not part of this because, you're off the party line. And I'm just the guy saying, hey, the king's clothes, they're not stiff.
Yeah, right.
They're not stiff. That's not what it is.
Let me ask you a question with the BOSU ball.
Yes.
Hold on real quick. Let's go back. So we got 1992 to
92 graduate. So the rollerblade, I rollerblade. I fall in love with it. I do it for 6 years, and that's all I do. If I'm outside, I'm in skates.
Okay.
Right. I'm going out on a Friday night, and I'm in skates. Because I could walk around in them and you don't know, and then it gives me an extra 3-4 inches. Right?
There you go.
Yeah, it's just advantageous. Yeah. And what happened was the result of that is my feet became extremely extremely weak because they were never articulating.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Never any ground reaction force onto a dynamic foot that has to deal with it.
Makes sense.
Never.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have thought of that, but yeah.
Well,
after
and
years
I
years,
didn't. I didn't think about it at the time either because I didn't know better.
Mhm.
But the weak feet, I dropped my motorcycle one day and I picked it up, very quickly,
Sure.
and I felt my lower back sort of, oh man, that twinge. And a couple days later, I collapsed with lower back pain, and I wasn't able to get rid of the back pain because my body was sending tension up because the feet weren't capable of doing what they need to do
Sure.
to send it and deliver it.
Mhm.
And so it was a year of chronic pain. And
What kind of things did you do for it?
I did physical therapy and I took painkillers.
Mhm.
And I overdid the painkillers, just wrenched my organs out of, it went toxic in my body.
Any imaging? Did you know what was going on?
I had the imaging and, slight herniation between L4, L5, I think the correlation to, the picture and the pain, throw a dart.
Yeah, sure. That's what I was interested in. Yeah.
But what happened was, I discovered the stability ball about a year into this process, and that created. There's two forms of balance. There's one is controlling the chaos, that reflexive writing and adjusting, that like
Instinctive,
that,
quick.
right? People think like that kind of stuff. So that is an aspect of balance. But the other aspect of balance is that harmony and the weight shift that is perfect, and it can be perfect, just like a tiger. It can be just like that.
Super efficient.
You look at the Red Bull athletes, and I've never seen a tiger or a chimp do 3 flips on a motorcycle over 100 feet.
Sure.
Right? So the human animal is unbelievable physically, especially in terms of the coordination, not in terms of the strength.
Right.
So that aspect, I'll talk about something called rope flow. So 2004, I met one of the best jump ropers in the world named Buddy Lee, and I watched him perform. And he did a lot around the body, including jumping through. And so what I did was I just strategically said, I'm going to remove the jump through, and I'm only going to do the stuff around the body. And it reduces itself down to 4 fundamental patterns. So there's an underhand figure 8, there's an overhand figure 8, there's where you can do it sideways, and then one's going over and one's going under, and then you can orient yourself back to that overhand and do a sneak, where one hand's coming behind the back pronating. And then you can orient that sneak to the underhand, where the rope is now going underhand, and you're sneaking with that rope. And it organizes your body with 100% integration. You can make it no impact, and you can make it as intense as a jump rope session, and you get that muscle memory where every instant your entire body knows route, so you can drop at any instant. And it's just the most powerful Rosetta Stone of training that I know.
When you showed me the rope flow for the first time,
Yes.
It was, a year, maybe 2 years ago during COVID or sometime during that time.
Yes.
I was coming off a knee injury that was several years old that I've talked about a few times. And of all the things I've done for rehab, that was super effective for me. And what I felt, I go off feel a lot. Although, I can articulate things biomechanically, like scientifically maybe. But a lot of times I like to take that and see how it feels and what the response is, right? And
the feeling is knowing.
Feeling is knowing.
Yes.
When you showed that to me, I brought my friend Corey in, I think.
Yep.
And what was interesting about that, Dustin, is I wouldn't say I'm a great jump roper. Like I can jump rope for a minute or 2 minutes maybe, but I'm not jumping rope for 10 minutes. I'm getting tangled up. I'm getting tired. I'm not like a boxer jumping rope. You taking the jumping out of it, David, made it so understandable and also digestible. It was a little bit weird with the movements, but once I coordinated it, it almost felt like my right half of my mind was coordinated with the left half of my body. And there's certain flows where it was hitching. I just couldn't quite get it to go smooth. It wasn't smooth. And the rope was giving you feedback. So for people that are listening and can't see it,
the rope. If the rope is true, so are you. It's literally like you train with the wire, and then you can graduate to wireless. Because I know exactly where I am. I know the relationship of rotation. And through Ryan Harrison, I met through Dean Brittenham, where our paths sort of intersect way back when. I met Dean Brittenham in 2000.
Okay.
And I met him because I sold the BOSU ball to his son Greg Brittenham at the New York Knicks. And when he reordered more, I was like, well, I'm going to come deliver them personally.
Sure.
We're going to see what you're doing with these things.
Right.
And so we spent a few hours together, and he said, you got to meet my father, Dean. So I flew out to San Diego for a week, and I trained with Dean. And BOSU, the name came from both sides up, sort of BOSU, the acronym.
Got you.
But after I met Dean, it transferred to both sides utilized. Because Dean would have his athletes doing like juggling and these, right brain, left brain things. And you can biomechanically sort of gear this harmony with the organs of function, your hands, that occupy a huge amount of real estate in the motor and sensory cortices. And so you can sort of, the rope, it gives you that consistency and that whap, that pronation and supination and that flow feeling of, you're sort of ramping yourself up into a flow state, like the zone, literally biomechanically, and that will radiate. You can create a global harmony. And so back in those years, I've done more rope flow than anybody on the planet.
It's fatiguing.
Well, it can be.
Yeah.
It can be just as fatiguing as jumping a rope because you can do jumps. The difference between rope flow and jumping rope flow is on beat. Everything goes down, everything comes up.
Yeah.
Jump rope is syncopated, where hands go down, feet come up, right? And they're both valuable skills, especially for a boxer. A boxer who knows how to syncopate that half beat can literally jump from, a conventional stance to a southpaw stance without changing anything else. And now I've got the power hand on the other side. Right, and that's that syncopated. But athletically, the more valuable foundation is on beat.
Yes.
So, on beat, then start dividing the beats. Right, that's my philosophy. And you're not beating yourself up. In high school, I stopped jumping rope because I ran a 4.640 and I could dunk a volleyball. And when I jumped rope for 25 minutes. My time was starting to get slower. My height, the jump was going slower because that low amplitude, tons and tons of reps, it's not good for power, right? And I wanted power. So, and that was just, that was feel and empirical, like, oh no, I'm not jumping as high. Well, what are the factors? Jumping through the rope. Right. And that was, I think, that inspired me back, when I'm 34 years old in 2004 to say, all right, well, I can do this with no wear and tear on my body. So I can do the reps necessary to get that coordination, now get the drop.
That's what I really liked. It allowed me to get back to squatting because I wasn't squatting at all because of knee pain. And what I noticed in it was rhythmic. And why I said it was fatiguing is as soon as I got into a good flow, because there was some glitch left to right or some weakness, but as soon as I got into a flow with it, was right about the time where my legs were burning and I was fatigued out, and so I needed to continue to build that stamina. But I felt like it was instead of doing just standard repetitions, it was very rhythmic, So I think
the way that I look at the lower body is it's a top-down approach. People say, comes from the ground up. But yes, it has to get to the ground first. So it is down and then it is up. It's not up without the down for not yet, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll figure that out. But that coordination of the down and up, the upper body will dictate what the lower body can do. Because if the upper body's not right, there's nothing that your feet or your knees or anything can do about that situation other than try to help you recover. But when the upper body knows how to shift weight, now you're going to get less sort of stuck in the knee or stuck in the foot or the ankle because you're not having to compensate for anything. So it really is upper body driven. And the signal that goes to your hands, that's cervical nerves versus, lumbar nerves for your feet. So just the time it takes for the nervous system to compute and send signals, the hands are so much faster. Because we're talking about relatively slow speed, that neural transmission. Speed of light versus, the nervous system, orders and orders of magnitude less speed.
At what point in time did it go from training and feeling to, now you're talking neurological, you're talking very kind of nuanced stuff, but also, how did the BOSU ball come about? You said, weakness
So,
in the feet.
So back to BOSU ball. The
I
weakness.
feel like we're teasing this BOSU.
Right.
We don't even know how it came about.
We're going to edit it up together. One clip.
I love a bunch of teasers. People are going, I want to know about this BOSU.
So the BOSU ball came from, I discovered the stability ball, and the writing and adjusting was almost like hitting your computer's malfunctioning, so you reset it.
Mm-hmm.
So those writing and adjusting sort of, if you have, little muscles that are stuck in this protective tension, just that sudden reflex to write, I mean, it can sort of give that an incentive, to say like, oh, I've been tense this whole time, and now I just experienced, an adjustment.
So you were sitting on the stability ball.
I was sitting on it. I was doing exercises on it. I was, with it on it. And
real quick, you just mentioned something real quick. Earlier you said tension, and I haven't heard it said this way, so I want to kind of reiterate because you just mentioned it again. You talked about tension as protective. What was the other? Preventive?
Productive.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's the task that I want to do, and I want, before we were smart enough to make life easier, physical economy was the law.
Yeah.
The caveman was not doing burpees and pull-ups.
Yeah.
He was getting stuff done.
Sure.
Right? And I don't think the caveman really sprinted all out very often, because situational awareness and preserving my energy is more important than running as fast as I possibly can so that, 5 minutes later, beads of sweat are still coming out the way we do it now. With our and if I have to run away from a saber-toothed tiger, it's too late.
Right.
Yeah.
If I do succeed, I'm not going to succeed the next time.
Sure.
Right? So
that's an interesting concept, because we always talk about the fight or flight. We're always thinking about cavemen running away from things or chasing after things.
Yeah, and chasing after it is using your brain and communication skills.
Yeah. But in reality, that probably was not done on a regular, because they're going to be more, they'll kind of gather and get people
if you can look at, you can watch the Maasai warriors in Africa to this day, and I just bought a book at the swap meet on the Maasai.
Did you really?
Yeah, that's such good information. But if you watch them, they all have sticks, spears, right? You can't leave home without it. And a bunch of them will see the lion, starting to devour the zebra carcass, and they'll strategically run at that lion.
Shoo him off.
And that lion knows that enough of those guys with those spears, like, oh, I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole thing where the lion, the first person to throw the spear at a lion, the lion will come after that. The lion's smart, and the lion's...
Like, you don't have your weapon.
Like, if you threw the spear at the lion, you have to go to the back of the group, because the lion is not coming for me.
Yeah.
It's coming for you. You're the one who did it, right?
Sure.
But enough of us together with spears, we can rob him of his meal.
And the Maasai, if I remember correctly, because I don't know if it was you that mentioned it, but they're really known for miles and miles and miles of outdoor running. Well,
what they do is they are the runners and the jumpers.
That's right.
They're not the sort of the Teta Humara, I may have said that name wrong, from Born to Run. They're not running 26 miles.
Okay, yeah.
They are the warriors. They herd cattle, drink the blood and drink the milk, keep it alive, and they will go out opportunistically and hunt. But it's a lot of walking and then short bursts of not all-out sprint, but running. Yeah. Right.
So was there something unique about their locomotion that caught your eye, or that
No, other than, you know how like the deep squat years ago, that became sort of like, okay, you're not an adequate human unless you can deep squat ass to grass, and otherwise, and for some people in certain cultures they can, their bodies can do it, but the Maasai, they don't tend to sit on the ground that way. Mm-hmm. They prop themselves up. So Michael Jordan, LeBron James, these guys could never do it. They can't even do a parallel squat. And if you think about like running and jumping, there can be a mechanical advantage if the hip is seated in a little deeper, where I can't sort of go to a full squat. Whereas, if the lever arm is leveraged out, well, perhaps I lose some of that vertical impact.
So,
So
it's not
human
necessarily
beings are different, and culturally speaking,
sure.
an Eskimo eats fat. There's no broccoli growing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And there's no mangoes either. So we're very different, as similar as we are.
So it doesn't need to be a biomechanical disadvantage. Per
I just
se.
think you can be good at it because physiologically your body lends itself to those positions, but you might not be good at it, and it is not because you are you could get better, but you will never do a snatch that requires you to get that low.
I
That
agree
makes
with
sense.
you.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm working with somebody, I always tell them, "Hey, we're not going to try to get you textbook, but we're going to try to maximize your full potential." So
Your full
your full
potential.
potential.
Yeah.
And guess what? We're going to maximize that, and then in 6 months, we're going to maximize the next maximize. Right?
There you
'Cause
go.
can
Exactly.
progress.
Right.
But we might not ever get you ass to grass or anything because your
Right.
body's just not. So I agree with
Right.
you on that.
Right.
And I think that's okay.
If
People
you
need
watch
to
if you
redefine
watch Usain Bolt after the race and sort of posing with the flag,
Right.
he's doing a balls of the foot squat, and I call that squat to run.
Yeah.
Squat to rest is the heels are flat, and I can weave
You're
the
100%
basket,
right
and
about that.
build the fire and do that. But if I'm squatting and my heels are high in the air and I'm on my balls of my feet, my
You're
toes,
exploding.
well, I'm ready to run.
Yeah.
So I sort of say squat to run, squat to rest, and they're both good, but your body may be better at one of them naturally. So anyway, BOSU ball. So what happens is I see a picture of Paul Chek on the internet standing on the stability ball.
And who's Paul Chek?
Paul Chek he's a sort of a pioneer in the exercise space.
I see. Okay.
Who really he was the principal guy who took the stability ball out of rehabilitation where it was sort of born
Yeah.
into athletic, training.
Gotcha.
And when I saw him standing on it, I'll try that. So
Sure.
I, held onto the pull-up bar and I stood on the ball and I learned to do it. I learned to jump on it. I could jump from one ball to another ball.
Yeah.
And, when you're doing that, you are engaged fully and you're ready for the mess up.
Yeah.
But I was also training the other end of the spectrum inspired by Feldenkrais. And Feldenkrais is a somatic therapy that involves reducing the effort to the absolute bare minimum where I can discern fine gradations of force. And one example is, if I'm carrying a piano and a fly lands on the piano,
You feel it.
there's no differential that I can sense from the fly landing on the piano. You throw a 100-pound weight on the piano, I'll feel it. But if you threw a half a pound weight on it, I might not feel it.
Sure.
So if I can reduce the effort, now I can, that's smoother. Right? Oh, wow. Whereas if I was just gritting through it, I won't ever discern it. So I was training on that end of the spectrum, and I was watching the New York Knicks in the finals.
Mm-hmm. So that was a while ago.
This was 1999.
Yeah.
1999, exactly. And I'm standing on this 75-centimeter ball. I close my eyes and I tilt my head to, play with the vestibular and the visual inputs to balance. And boom, and I fell, boom, and you're not on guard because you're at this minimum now. I landed on the ball. I did a backflip across the apartment. I started kicking my feet to make sure I could still do it. I was so scared because I landed on my neck.
Yeah.
And that night, contemplating my dilemma of, wow, my feet are starting to get strong. My back is starting to feel good. How am I going to progress this if I'm not going to do that?
So you're feeling improvements just from the stability.
I was by that time, I was 80% better.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was sort of that writing and adjusting and the intricacies of the core musculature, getting coordinated and getting action again.
So you're trying to stand on it, not kneel on it.
Well, I could do all that stuff.
Yeah.
I could do all of it, and it was fun.
Yeah, sure.
And
over about how much time would you say? I mean, given the estimate, it's been so long, but like how much time did you work on the stability ball?
It was rapid.
Where you started to feel.
It was very rapid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, as soon as I did it, I was incentivized to do it more because I could feel that there was light opening up at the end of the tunnel.
It opens
That
up
feedback,
quickly.
huh?
Yeah, it opened up very
Neurologically,
quickly.
that's what I tell my patients
Yeah.
all the time, and we don't always talk about it, but we witness it, and then they start to say something.
The nervous system, I mean, the
Almost-
nervous system is how you can make the most rapid
Mhm.
improvements possible. And, even they say lifting weights. I mean, the adaptation is your neural ability to recruit more and familiarity with the movement than it is the actual muscle growth. It's going to take weeks.
Mhm.
So you come in the next week and you're like, wow, I'm a lot stronger.
Yeah.
So, and neurologically that's what controls everything.
Right.
So it was that night laying in bed thinking like, okay, well, what am I going to do? And I was like, what if I cut it in half? And instant.
So
I
just like
knew,
that.
Yeah, and just like this, I was like, oh my God, like this, wow.
That's great.
And I went out to New Jersey, my folks' house, and I built a prototype the next day. The glue dried Sunday, it worked. Okay, called my agent on Monday, I'm done acting. Because this was, opportunity.
You felt it.
I knew it before I felt it, and then I felt it.
Gotcha.
And the true innovation of the BOSU ball, why it is so iconic and everywhere, is when the dome is up, it is stable.
Yeah.
So it's a convex trampoline, right? Where there is as minimal risk as possible that could exist to a balance challenge. Because I just step off it and put my foot on the ground.
Yeah.
Whereas if the device is inherently unstable, well, now it's not if, it's when you're going to fall if you try to progress on it.
Sure.
And there's a long learning curve for the nervous system to relax. And I want to load, explode. I don't want to get hitched up in the upper body. Like I want that force to go down as fast as it possibly can.
Smooth flow.
And yes, and our center of mass, we cannot accelerate ourselves any faster than gravity can take us down.
Okay.
So we can move the hands and the feet a lot faster than that, but we can't take the center of mass. And if I'm doing a snatch with a barbell, I'm using the barbell itself to pull myself down faster.
Sure.
But athletically speaking, the fundamental formula is you drop the mass, you lift the feet, and boom, right? Barry Sanders. You're running, right? You see the guy there. I'm going to drop gravitational speed. I'm lifting the feet. I create those angles and ba-ba. Right? The crossover in basketball will always work because I'm 0.16 seconds ahead of you. Right? If you don't bite on the first one, I'll take it. And if you bite, I'm going to cross you over. Allen Iverson's going to always get it. Always.
I have a question for you that's not scientifically related because your background being an athlete and then going into acting, which is an art. I think being an entrepreneur or inventing something is an art form. I think something like what we do, chiropractic, there's a science to it, but there's an art to it as well.
Oh, huge.
And feeling. And so I really like how you connect it to the neurological, because I think a lot of times when people are lifting, they're thinking, I want to just get stronger. They're thinking muscles. They're not thinking nerves. They're thinking hypertrophy. Exactly.
Right.
But my question really is, what gave you the confidence to be an inventor? Or to create something and know that, hey, I think there's something here and I'm going to see it through, not having done it before with something else?
Well, I guess with my personal training clients, I developed an in-home practice so that basically, it's very flexible and you make a lot more money. So I would skate around Manhattan, train 9 people in a day.
Sure.
You're flush with cash and, you weren't waiting tables and you weren't, working at a gym making a lot less.
Right, yeah.
So I would sort of, be very creative in that space with the exercises that we would do. And I would do a lot of manual resistance with people. I would, I bought a water skiing handle that I would hook on the door, you could pull with it. So it was like beautiful. A TRX way back when. I think what gave me the confidence was I saw the potential and it was ready, fire, aim because I'd never done it before, but I just knew like if I can get this thing off the ground and I can patent this thing,
that was it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be able to support a family, right? That was my objective.
What's interesting to me is that it, one, that you created it, like you said, how'd you put it? Ready,
Ready, fire, aim.
Yeah,
Like now I aim the shot.
sure.
But I still have that sort of that. I love the guerrilla inventing,
Mm-hmm.
where like on a Friday night at 7:30, I'm in there in the lab, like
Working.
get working, and because the new propulsors that I have are, I mean, this thing is going to become. In athletics, an advantage becomes a necessity.
Yes.
So soccer player wears cleats, so does a football person, because if I don't have them, I don't have the advantage. And this training stimulus, the propulsors, especially the spring-loaded ones that I can put on the body with the vest.
So those are different than the ones I've seen?
Yes.
Okay.
Now they both have their advantages. So we're not going to stop making the one with the BBs in it, because that is better for certain. It's like a kettlebell and a dumbbell. We're like, okay.
Both have a purpose.
Yeah, I mean, one is better at certain things and the other is better at other things. But the spring-loaded one gives us the ability to now, we don't have to activate it faster than gravity. We can just use gravity because the spring potentiates it, and you can't outrun it because it'll oscillate at more than 5 times a second. So you can't outrun it, and there's no learning curve. You put it on, and when you step, now I've removed the inertia for milliseconds. So I'm not having any burden of slowing down. I'm getting that plyometric effect. Now, right at that instant, that weight spikes and it hits the bottom, and I get a jolt of force that instantly springs back up. So in the calculation in terms of the power spike, because we're talking about milliseconds, 10 ounces can turn into 40 pounds. If it's going in the hands. On the body, it can't spike that high because the hands can go faster.
Sure.
But on the body, 10 ounces can probably become 5-6 pounds.
And you feel that explosiveness.
And it's a millisecond, and it gets you off the ground. The reason why a competitive sprinter does not train with a weight vest in sprinting is because it messes with your mechanics. I'm on the ground more time. I'm not able to get up to that top position because the weight burden is pulling me down more than it would when it's off. This vest, I can get up on top.
So it's with the rhythm.
Hold on, we skipped ahead.
I know.
I'm talking about propulsive. I don't even know what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
So
right.
You skipped to a whole nother. You talked about something. So you threw something in there, and then you started talking about it. I'm like, no, that's good. Why don't you guys explain?
Dustin, thank you for keeping this thing on the
rails.
rails.
I'll framework it real quick.
Yeah, so
keeping this thing on the rails.
Yeah, well,
we went from BOSU ball, and then we were talking about the rope flow. But when I was first introduced to David, he showed me something called the propulsors, which are these hand weights. He probably has some examples. And when you have them in your hands and you're running, if you bounce, what I was going to say about my track days was when I ran the way I was supposed to, quote unquote,
yes,
it was okay. I was more in like, what is my stride length and what is my cadence?
Yes.
Can I increase my stride length an inch? Can I increase my revolution, my frequency? Correct.
Yes.
When I felt the best was after practice, when it's like cool down, do 2 laps, and I was
bouncing, connective tissue,
and that's my normal kind of rhythm. And so when you have this, it like almost helped me relearn it. And these sound different than the first ones.
Yeah, these are very quiet. What that is there's a weight and it's perched on a spring.
Okay.
And as soon as my body weight hits, that activates it. So now you can feel how
I can feel the difference if I get off. It doesn't go.
Right.
I get
now,
the rhythm.
And
so what do I want to feel?
What we actually want to feel is we want to optimize the impact force, and the faster we can load, the less burden you have on the body, because now the muscles are just fluid sacs that transmit pressure, and it's the fascia and that connective tissue recoil that bounces you off the ground. So it's less burden and it's faster. Economy and power. Mm-hmm. What we want to do when we're running is we want to have, as opposed to where you're swinging, because you have an opportunity. The foot that's hitting the ground, that ipsilateral side is coming forward. Mm-hmm. And I have an opportunity with the mass of that arm to help spike the force and bounce it up.
So you're coiling it.
You're coiling it, so your core's involved, the hip is coming from high to low, and the foot's coming down fast, and now the upper body weights it. And I had discovered in 2010, I went to Chinese medical school. I learned the meridians, and I was learning the Tai Chi and different arts. And I was doing these spiraling drills.
This is pre-BOSU ball? So
This is after BOSU ball.
Okay, yeah.
A lot of time involved in this. You don't make these discoveries without the...
2010, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and this was... You have to understand, I was all day, every day, I was studying movement. Like all day, every day. And I was a drinker back on the East Coast. And when I came out here, I'd meet someone who was successful who smoked pot. I'm like, you smoke pot?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do it every night. I'm like, whoa. And it sort of gave me license. And for me, THC was like, it was like, like the stuff that would knock a person out. That was like, electrifying for me. And I had the sensitivity. I could feel everything. And so from a martial standpoint, I loved it. And from just a feeling athletic, I mean, you can play basketball high. Can't play baseball high. Right? I mean, baseball, there's no feeling. You have to like, you have to see that thing visually, and you have to act faster than the human can react to hit it, right? Basketball, I mean, Michael Jordan, you put a blindfold on him, and he, his shot accuracy would not go down that much.
Right? Eyes closed, free throw, right?
Yeah, right. And so there's that rhythm and that flow and that feel. So I guess different speed would help you in baseball.
Sure, that's why a lot of baseball players. Amphetamines was
it was a big thing because you're Air Force pilots, right?
Sure.
If you got to do that stuff, it's very that teleception is high level brain, forebrain, back brain, and it's very this. Whereas playing music and playing basketball and doing stuff like that,
there's a creative aspect to it.
There's a flow aspect to it, right? And so. The combination, I could buy as much as I wanted, and I could do it all day long, and I could train all day long, and I could go train and pay to train with, people of very high level that you feel.
Yeah.
And so I was able to really accelerate my prowess and my ability to move really well. And I was doing this spiraling drills, and the objective of this was to be able to move the distal as fast as I possibly can with the least amount of effort. And it's this whip and wind. Whip and wind.
What got you starting to do that?
Just the study of martial and the study of speed.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, instead of doing this with the hand, I was folding. Folding is faster and more fluid than grabbing. So if I lead with the DIP joint and I do that, I don't get there as fast. And this is very restrictive. So the tighter this is, the tighter everything gets. But when you fold, you now are triangulating bone structure that if I tension it, now it's super fast. Because I'm getting sort of I'm harmonizing the flexion force and the extensor force. Sort of the fear and the fight. And that fetal is the fear, and you can the distal extremity. You can organize that flexion into buttressing the extension.
Now with the fight,
and so what happened was boxing is I love watching boxing, and May 1st, 2010, Mayweather is fighting Shane Mosley, and the second round Mosley clocks Mayweather, and I got excited because whoa, is this going to be the one, right?
Sure.
And I jumped up and my hands went to here, just.
Natural.
Because I had done 10,000 of these. And I went here, and later that night, I clamped it down. And I was like, oh, my God. And I was like, oh, my God. I started shadow boxing on the door jamb. And in those moments, I was like, wait a minute. And I started punching down and creating this jolt where I was like, I never came off the ground that fast. And as soon as I did it, I saw Deion Sanders. And Deion Sanders, he holds his hands like this, and he hits down, down, down. And when he holds a football, he goes down, down, down. So he's spiking ground force. And that's when it dawned on me, like, oh my God, this is a superior arm action for speed and economy. And then I started looking, I saw it Randy Moss, right? Usain Bolt does it with the elbow, right? That if you watch it and you know it, then you can see it.
Your videos that you slow down really make it apparent.
Yes, I mean frame by frame, you can see. But Justin Gatlin, his arms are literally, he's not 90-90. It's this, and then very acute angle here, because I don't want the humorist to come forward here. That's wasting time, and I'm not strong here. I'm strong here. Down, right? And so it became evident to me, and that was 2010. Now, I taught every athlete that I came into contact with, but it was a very high touch, high commitment, high, desire to learn it.
Sure.
Because when you're going full on speed, you're just going to do what is in the lower brain.
Instinctive.
You don't someone could teach you a form that's not going to carry over, and you could train it for 100 years. When you actually have to go fast, you're going to resort to what the body's going to do subcortical.
Sure.
Right? So it takes a lot of repetitions to ingrain sort of a new engram pattern. Right? And I didn't have a stimulus to do it. And in 2017 is when I figured out the BB one.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my gosh. Like I took the RMT club as another invention that I have, and it's a club that has a shifting weight inside of it. So you can use that strategically for percussion and recoil. You can use it for no sound and centrifugal, and it's.
I love that too, by the way.
Yeah, and it's a better tool. I got really into Indian clubs. I was a collector, had heavy ones, light ones, and everything in between. And I wanted one that didn't exist because I wanted to go fast. And so you can swing the RMT club faster than any club. And I love speed. So that was so I had that shot material, and I put it in a little container, and I was like, boom. I'd gone to the swap meet, and I found these little 2-pound weights like the week before.
Mm-hmm.
And I purchased the weights, and I was double down pulsing with 2-pound weights all through. And I was like, I'm getting a jolt.
You were feeling it.
Well, I was feeling it, but the cost was the inertia. And so the soreness right here was unbelievable. And you can't the inertia does not let you go 4.5 times per second.
Yeah.
Right? So then I was like, okay, how do I solve that problem? Went to Home Depot and I bought like a 1/4-pound weight, 3/8, a 1/2 pound. Like I had all these carabiners and circles, all different weights. And I was exploring is there a Goldilocks weight that I can double down with?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then I came inside and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I can remove the inertia by making a movable material.
Yeah.
And I did it. I was like, boom. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my greatest invention.
Yeah.
I've spent 5 times more money on the patent, and then probably 6, 7 with all the other patents on this right here. The IP on this is unbelievably strong because it's such a game changer that now I can run faster with a weight than without a weight. So in history, we have Greek halters. They competed not in a running broad long jump, but they did a standing broad jump in the Greek Olympics, whereby I think one of them was like you would do 3 repetitive jumps, and there's no burden to how long it's going to take you. And they figured out that if they had these weights that were Goldilocks weights, I could create enough momentum to generate that inertia that at the last second I pull on the weight and I get an 8-inch advantage.
8 inches, wow.
Roughly, there's been modern studies that basically calculated that, 8 inches is about, sort of the scale if you're really able to do it.
Yeah.
Right? But an 8-inch advantage is huge. But there's no burden of time, so they're creating the inertia that then they pull themselves further with.
Which is a technique in itself.
Yeah, that's a technique that you learn in itself. But that was an example of a human being performing a distance jump better with the accoutrement than without. Because normally you'd say, well, more mass, and especially it's not contractile mass, well, no, get rid of it, jump further. Because this games the physics where we're able to basically take the inertia out of it for all intents and purposes and concentrate that momentum into the moment because it's land, load, launch. Mm-hmm. And that sequence is happening in less than 1/10 of a second. Right.
I would say when you showed me the video, one thing that I thought was pretty interesting was when you went to the convention center stairs.
Yes.
So years ago, pre-ACL, I would run those stairs, and so I'm super familiar with them. Challenge myself to different reps. I would time myself. So when I saw you with them, what struck me is you had different people, not just yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Run up without these propulsors, had a time with the propulsors, so with some weight. Logically, you'd think if you're running with weight, it's going to be slower. The time was faster. And I saw you post that, and I believed it, but I needed to feel it.
Yep.
So I took the other ones out.
Yes.
And I haven't done those stairs in years, but it was about 2 or 3 weeks after you posted that video. And I didn't time myself. I didn't have any sort of stopwatch or somebody with me. But I will tell you, it felt easier
Yes.
with the weights.
We have had universal success up a staircase with propulsors, provided you know the technique, where you're actually doubling down. You're not swinging them one up, one down.
Sure.
Universally, from professional athletes from various sports to high school kids, everybody is faster with them than without them, objectively. And this is, don't move the camera, start in the same position so I can lay this frame over frame. So I'm not even, there's no error whatsoever. We're down to, do it in slow motion, we're looking at 250 frames, right?
Yes, yeah.
So we can tell with absolute precision, everyone's faster. And subjectively, when I asked them, I said, okay, if I'm the coach and I'm saying you're going to do 20 of these, do you want to hold them or not? And universally, I want to hold them because you can game the physics, and now you're creating more connective tissue recoil where the connective tissue response happens for free. When you go to the doctor and he hits your knee with the little rubber hammer and your shin goes up,
you're not thinking about it.
It's happening. Like, a human being who is completely exhausted, there's no more calcium ion exchange. You cannot do another rep. We can hook up electrodes to your muscles and we can make you rep.
Sure.
Right? The connective tissue, like if you can't do it, provided it's not like frozen in space, we can make it happen. Just because of that tissue response.
Sure.
Right?
And that's what
it does. And I think new is threatening. So it takes a long time for new truth to be accepted. So there's the ridicule, the rejection, the vehement opposition, and then, oh yeah, it was obvious all along. That's the phase. And Fosbury's high jump technique was the epitome of that. So 1968, he wins the gold medal, and he sets the new Olympic record.
And then,
doing the technique. 4 years later in 1972, the gold medal is won with a lesser jump by a man doing the old technique. I mean, you want to talk about cognitive dissonance and willful ignorance on the world stage.
It's human nature, I would say.
I would say so, because if I'm an expert, the last thing I want to find out is that I'm not expert.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you're going to fight tooth and nail.
Well, yeah, and so right now I am, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I'm 6 years into this, and Fosbury, it took 8 years to be universally adopted. We're right on schedule.
Let me interject real quick and say something. With the BOSU ball, to go back to it again.
Yeah.
So when I was first introduced to it and started using it just in general for PT stuff with patients, to me it felt very intuitive, and maybe it's like my, a little bit of ignorance, or maybe it's because I wasn't the straight A student in school. To me, I looked at it and it made sense. However, I understand that there was a lot of pushback, and there was a lot of people who said, like, this is going to create more injuries. I don't see that, but what was going on?
What happened there? What happened there was I invented it in 1999, and that was when the swell of the stability ball was at the wave was at its crest, right? Rollerblading was more popular than skateboarding in 92, and now find me a rollerblader, right? It doesn't exist, and skateboards are everywhere. So things come and they go and they change, and it's at a whim, right? So where was my thought?
I was just asking if you had pushback and why.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So in '99, onboarding it at the highest levels was relatively easy. So I had some detractors, but they were more people not in the industry who looked at it and just said, "Go to law school, dude." Like,
did you care? Because I don't think I would care if I was putting out a product that I felt.
No, I knew.
Okay.
I knew. So once I know.
Sure.
I know, right? I trust my gut.
Yeah.
And there was enough hype about the stability ball, and they were everywhere, that going in and selling it to the U.S. ski team, who they're going to like it regardless. I mean, it's, every male skier has destroyed his knee and needs to rehab it. I've had some of the best skiers in the world come up to me personally and say, your BOSU ball was a pivotal part of me getting back on the slopes, right? But then I got the Yankees, I got the Lakers, I got the Devils, and I got the Ravens and the Rams at first. So my first was the ski team. Then the Australian Institute of Sport got snuck in because the ski team guy knew those guys. But then it was the big four sports, the championship teams, and that was my okay. That's my validation.
Now established, yeah.
And I didn't care what your name is. I just cared that it said New York Yankees strength coach, right? Because no one knows you, and I don't care either.
So that's how you did. You reached out to those particular individuals.
Yes. And I got the meeting, and I made the sale, and then I made several hundred to continue to get it out there, and that was sort of my marketing, was just put it in use. Whilst I was, developing the mass-produced manufactured tools.
Gotcha, yeah.
Right, which takes time. As soon as I had the patent pending, it was off to Park City, and great stories too. But it was relatively easy to onboard it, and it was met with a lot of success initially. So we would go to trade shows, and we would sell out everything that we brought. I went to a trade show here in San Diego. It was the Idea World Conference. We shipped in 750 BOSU balls.
Wow.
It cost us $30,000 in drayage for them to forklift them off the truck and put them on the cement in the floor. $30,000.
I wish I was around and we knew each other. I could do it for you. Gosh, dang it.
Well, no, this is union stuff, right?
Yeah,
They're going to exact their pound of flesh.
Yeah.
But we sold every single one of them. This was unprecedented. Nobody could bring product in and just move it all. So it was met with a lot of success. Now, fast forward to 2007, when core stability and stiffness became the priority. That narrative was pushed forward by condemning the BOSU ball, because all of the sudden, unstable, it won't injure you, it will make you weaker.
That's what I read.
It will make you weaker. And there was a pivotal study done.
Interesting.
A pivotal study done that sort of put the nail in the coffin on the BOSU ball. The study did not use BOSU balls, ironically enough.
Wow.
It used Dynadiscs that are not stable.
Those are different.
And they had them lifting weights on the Dynadisc, which is going to uproot tension in your body as your body protects, not produces. And then that became, how you market a study on Dynadiscs, right?
Yeah,
But and I kept my mouth quiet because I knew it would just be putting fuel on the fire. Yeah. But suddenly BOSU balls made you weaker, and the strength coach that was, amenable to it and had it, okay, boom, get it out of here. That thing's a piece of garbage. I'm a charlatan, all that nonsense, right?
So it kind of took...
what it did, the way I look at it is, and since I have experience, consumer fitness, I call that the vortex. Because if someone goes to Target and they buy a fitness product, 4 months from then, they are no longer using that product. It is the top 5% who are the ones who will actually continue to use it. Most won't, including me. When's the last time you used your perfect push-ups?
Sure.
Right? When's the last time you did that?
There's a whole industry created on infomercial.
Well, and those products are even worse. Those products are even worse because a perfect push-up is a good product.
Yeah.
A TRX is a good product.
Yeah.
But it's just the way it works. Yeah. A consumer whose life is too busy, if you don't have a gym and you don't have a trainer, you fall off. That's just the way it works.
Most people, yeah.
So where the BOSU ball kept on being seen was in the commercial environment. There are personal trainers who use it with every single client, and they train 10 people a day.
Yeah.
That keeps it relevant and relevant and relevant, so that the person now does go to Dick's and buys one and gives it as a Christmas present or whatever they do, right? So that professional utility is what keeps something relevant and fit. You don't have a Thigh Master in here, and you don't have an Ab Lounge in here, and you don't have all those things, the TV products, because they're not as relevant to your practice. But you have BOSU balls in here, right? You're going to have elastic bands in here. You're going to have sort of tried and true, some form of weights, right?
Yeah.
Like those are like tried and true that have utility in a professional environment is what keeps something relevant. And the BOSU ball was very fortunate that it has a huge visual equity. Like it's a blue half ball. And I didn't put the name on it in a manner that you could see from 15 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
So most people, regular people, don't even know what BOSU means. If you're in the industry, you know the name.
It's recognizable, though.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you went to the county fair in Nebraska and you said BOSU, you can get a lot of huh? But if you said blue half ball, 50% of those people would say, oh, yeah, sure, I know that thing.
I've seen
right?
It, yeah.
So it has that visual equity. And 2007 is when that holy, top of the mountain market where it all trickles down from,
mm-hmm.
which is the most educated, I'll say, not necessarily best, the highest level sports, rehab, those things. We maintained our position in rehab because, and in certain sports like skiing and fighting, they never hated the BOSU ball. But the people who were after getting people stronger and getting people stiffer, the BOSU ball became the punching bag to move their agenda forward. And if you want to do simple math, let's just say a BOSU ball is $100.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than that now, but let's just say it's $100. Now let's say 1 million BOSU balls, which is not that many BOSU balls relative,
sure.
right? You do the math, that's $100 million.
Yeah.
Now, 2007, 2023, let's just say you only did 1 million a year.
Yeah.
Okay, so adding it up, I mean, the impact, impact to me from this narrative of core stiffness and BOSUs make you weaker, I mean, that has impact. And I'm not even a money guy, but, give me more money so I can do more good and I can move faster is the way I look at it, right? But so I became I became the guy in the industry. Once I invented the propulsors, I was like, I'm going to shove these down those MFers' throats.
You think it's the same people that doubt everything that you're creating?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because they've been
you than the actual product.
Well, yes, exactly. Anything associated with the BOSU ball is instantly dismissed, and so it's definitely they've been conditioned to feel and think a certain way. But fortunately, in the physical realm, the truth cannot be held down because it's empirical and it's physical. Mentally, spiritually, whatever you want. You can change your mind, right? You can tell me you do 10 push-ups. You only did 5, but you say you did 10.
Sure.
Right? Physically, we saw you do 5.
Yeah.
Right? Come back tomorrow and show us 10.
Yeah.
So physical, Fosbury is the one and only technique. The only thing you can do with Fosbury is nuance it to yourself. But you got to do it. You're not going to Western roll and you're not going to scissor. I'm sorry, you can't.
That's the evolution, the adaptation.
It's the evolution. It's what it is. Right? So when you have something that is empirically superior, and I'm a B+ level athlete, I am good enough to feel, know, and understand 100% if it has utility or not. Is this worth my time and effort? I'm good enough to know that 100%.
Yeah.
100%. But who am I? Physically, it doesn't matter. So I have to, if Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson said, these are great, boom.
Done.
Right? If Bo Jackson said, this is great, done. Right? But I'm fighting against this industry of hundreds of thousands, all with their CS accreditation.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And they're campaigning actively against me. Well, not against me, but against the BOSU ball. And so I thought that, okay, this is so good that I'm going to shove it down your throat. And I didn't realize that the limbic system of a human being is what governs the intellect. So if they are limbically challenged, they will do nothing until they are absolutely forced into a position of, okay, now enough critical mass is around me that the truth is now building, that my limbic system now gets reversed because now I don't want to be the last idiot.
Sure.
Right? I don't want to be the first idiot because if, God forbid, I take a chance.
That's risky.
Or that's very risky.
Right.
Because you'll be ostracized from your community. Right? So the whole thing is just nonsense. But this is something where now My aspiration is to be bigger than Nike.
I think your vest has potential. In fact,
I think the vest is going to be, I think what's going to happen is the vest will be a breakout because there's no learning curve.
Correct.
And it will help the fastest of the fastest get faster. And the no learning curve is so important.
You took the words out of my mouth because
no learning curve is absolutely critical. Here I'm asking you to do something different than what you've been told.
It took a little bit.
Here, especially with the beads, because they, like this, the way I instruct these now, hold them at your hips, do not move your hands. Now just jog.
Gotcha.
And when you jog, it starts doing this, and then I'm like, okay, just ride that. Oh, okay.
Take that rhythm.
Right, exactly. So it gives it to you. The pulse, remember, hamburger hands. Yeah. Okay, now you got to do this because you have to generate enough down to create the bounce back up.
I got to tell you, I like those too, though.
No, they're still useful.
It created something where I had to think about the connection. And for me, it took me a little bit. But when I gave those to like an NFL safety.
Well, Corey got them just like
Corey
that.
got it so quick. Another athlete, high-level athlete, got it within a minute or two. What I'd like you to do, because you haven't seen it, I'd love for you to try the vest on, and I want to get your reaction, because when I saw it,
I'll put it on you.
When I saw these, I was like, okay, let me see, and then I felt it made sense. When I just visually saw the vest, I said, damn, David's on to something.
Dustin, I'm going to put the vest on you.
Crazy.
All right?
So yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to. Yeah, of course.
Put it on you, Dustin.
Yeah.
So right here.
I could see NFL wide receivers wearing that.
Oh, I can see every player on the team.
Absolutely, and it helping them
like that
move easier and faster.
That's right. It's a unique plyometric that is undeniable.
While you're doing that, David, 1 to 10, what was your difficulty in getting the BOSU ball from idea when you woke up at night into I have my first iteration? Would you say that was a 10 out of 10 difficulty, or that was relatively easy for you?
It was easy for me.
Really?
Hold that thought, because I'm wearing this vest. And I don't understand
yeah, please.
About BOSU.
So
what do we do?
Just jump up and down a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you feel?
This is interesting. I feel lighter. Can I just walk around?
Come over this way so you're in the camera a bit.
Yeah. If you run, it does it. You do what you do. It does what it does. You take it off and you're faster.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So how many of these?
There's 20 cartridges in that. So the whole thing is about 12 pounds. But you can feel how you get that spring back up.
Well, they're all in rhythm too.
Yep, they're
no matter
all
how
in
you're
rhythm.
Moving laterally.
It doesn't matter if you're hitting the ground with more than your body's weight. That thing's going to spike.
It's very interesting.
I haven't worn it. Tell me what you're feeling.
It's very interesting. It literally lifts you up as you're going. Yeah.
What I'm doing is I'm training your tissues with some multiple of 12 pounds, so let's call it 30 pounds or something, for that fractional second. So I'm conditioning your tissues now plyometrically, but I'm getting you off the ground just as fast as if you didn't have it on. Or perhaps even faster, we don't know. I took the world record jumper from a run-up jump. He set the Guinness World Record, right? His name is Darius Clark, King Dak on Instagram. Okay. And I put that vest on him, and I compared frame over frame pogo jumps, right? Just repeat jumps as high as fast as you can go. Yep. And basically what I was... He jumped in different locations, so you couldn't sort of get a true height measure, but you could count frames on the floor.
Sure.
Frames on the floor. He was the same number of frames, and you would say that, okay, even though it's the same number of frames, he was just a fraction on the ground less time with it on.
With the weight on. Yeah.
So now, what's plyometrics? It's power equals force divided by time multiplied by distance. So if I'm getting you essentially same distance, and I'm giving you more force, and I'm keeping the time the same or even reducing it, the power value spikes up like it's never spiked up before. And I'm jumping 3 inches higher since I started wearing that thing. 3 inches higher.
That's amazing. Would you say that the increase in speed after wearing it is due to like neurological adaptation?
I think it's both. I think neurologically, I'm helping you perfect your optimal technique, but I'm also training your tissues.
Yeah.
Right? Mechanical force. So we're getting we're getting a training stimulus that biomechanically is working and then neurologically is working.
And there's a lot of feedback, right? Auditory.
Oh yeah,
physical.
I mean, you can feel that physical boom, boom, boom.
Vesta's super comfortable too.
Is
like
it? Yeah.
it's like you're not even
Because you've worn some like ruckus and some like different.
That's what I kind of felt like. Okay, to train in, but you can train. I feel it's very comfortable. I mean, the way
this is just a prototype. But what I have is I have an innovation group that if for people who join this innovation group, they have access to it before it is available to the public. And this one here, you got to come down to the lab and just look at what it is right now.
I'd love to see what it's
you should see, because I am making these by hand. I've got a guy who comes in and he's doing the work now, but I have done every process.
Yeah.
And I buy, steel slugs, and I just figured out how to not sand them down and make them smooth one at a time. I bought a cement mixer that
You're really trying to just dial it in.
I'm going to sell. We will not be able to keep up with the demand on these things because the people who have expressed the interest and it's not ready quite yet. I'm about a week away from having this thing available.
Mm-hmm.
We won't
That's
be able
not
to.
very long, David.
No, but it's been
years.
It's been months.
Yeah.
Well, the issue with this spring version of the pulsar is that it took me forever to find the spring that actually worked. Like if you think about it,
like tension-wise,
size, tension, to have that Goldilocks spring, it's extremely hard to find that Goldilocks spring. And you can't just go to Home Depot or Ace or wherever and say, "Let me see your spring section."
Sure.
They're going to show you like 4 drawers, and there's going to be a bunch of little springs, and none of them are going to work. And so, and how do you even commission a spring? What are you going to ask somebody for? And I just happened to find the spring at a hardware store where I was like, oh my God, I'm in the ballpark. And so now, and today, I received the order today. 10,000 springs arrived at my office today.
Wow.
10,000 springs.
That's amazing.
Awesome, yeah.
I love the innovation, but I also just as much love the journey of creating something.
Yes.
From idea to iteration to actual.
I patented this concept before I had the capacity to build it. So in my patent is both versions of the device.
Man,
but with the spring, I was like, I sort of didn't know where to start. Now, as I look back on it, I'm sort of ashamed of myself. It took so long because once you see something, once you understand something, it's obvious. But it's not obvious until it's obvious.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, also along the educational side of things, I think just like in medicine, we've made a parallel about people who go to medical school. They're trained in a certain way. And so really you then attach what you know to what you were taught.
Yes.
So until a whole generation of people are taught differently, there's going to be a whole segment of people that believe what they were taught, which is, segmented in time.
Yes.
And certain people don't continue to learn. I know Dustin's continued to learn year by year. I have, but not everybody does that.
I've been to a dermatologist that told me that diet has nothing to do with your skin. They did a study of prisoners. They fed half the prisoners this and half the prisoners that, and there was no differential in their skin. So therefore, your diet does not affect your skin. I mean, that's just like what?
Older physician, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, this was many years ago when I asked him, but he just.
But he's spitting out that information to the masses.
Yeah, he's just parroting it.
Everybody he comes in contact, he's sure.
And you think about it, it's not in his best financial interest in his own mind to say, hey, if you stop eating the irritant, maybe you won't have to wipe the ointment on.
Sure.
So there's I think what's going to happen. One of my objectives is because X on the map for locomotion is now understood, right? Nobody ever taught me to do it like that. I was only ever taught to do it, that way.
Sure.
And I can't find anywhere on the internet, in the literature, anywhere where some expert has said, put your head over your foot, coil your core to run. I've never heard that.
Not
yet. And I've, Franz Bosch. Oh, you read his book? I bought his book back in 06 or 07. If you look at all the exercise in a book, it's sagittalitis. There's no coil whatsoever, right? I mean, the unique position that I was in was I did not have the burden of delivering a cohesive session where you can't make mistakes. There was very little leeway to sort of test a theory in practice if the results are on the line.
Sure.
Right? I mean, how can you try and go way over here and fail? I've done things that didn't work. I've had ideas that, okay, that's not a winner, right? God forbid you introduce something like that in a professional environment. I mean, do no harm is the number one thing.
Sure.
So and I'm very intense.
Well,
so
the process of
the amount of energy and intensity and time, and I'm smart, so I can process things quickly, and so it's the fact that it's locomotion gives me the mantra that it's every step stronger for everyone. Because if you take every single step you take, if it is just slightly out of balance, you're going to aggregate tens of millions of these steps over the course of a lifetime. And at some point, your lower back or something else is going to probably hurt more than it otherwise would had you not aggregated 40 million out of balance steps that are out of balance to the point where you can't even sense that drip of water, right? They aggregate over time, you're habituated, and it's person see, person do. And now, because the craziness of our world right now, the people in power do not want strong, autonomous, independent thinking human beings doing things for God's glory. That's not what they want, right? And so what I do is I'm thinking like this is a physical education revolution.
Yes.
I'm going to get every single person who is involved in this field to be on my team, whether they want to or not. I don't care.
Undeniable.
You just do what is best, otherwise become irrelevant. Find the high jump coach that's teaching the scissor kick.
Right.
And I'll find the guy who's sitting in his living room not working.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at this as a much bigger mission, is to preserve liberty and the light of creativity and all these things that human beings are capable of that's being just crushed out of us right now.
Well, there's so many people that criticize versus assist, or criticize versus cheer on someone who's trying to do something.
It's Schadenfreude is the pleasure in other people's pain. And
I
remember coming up sophomore year, and my buddy who we played side by side, he had a red shirt in his locker and I had a blue shirt in my locker. And red meant that you were playing with the first team, and blue meant you were playing with the second team.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I didn't feel ill will toward him, but I sure felt like shit having a blue,
Sure.
Shirt. And then I remember, learning that, someone, I'm acting for 3 years, I'm making no money. And, I hear about a classmate of mine, he just made $7 million. Like, I'm not exactly thinking, hey, congratulations.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's a little bit of envy and,
Well,
okay.
you're working hard too. You're waiting
Right.
for it. Yeah.
And so, like, when you achieve a certain amount of success and you have a certain personality, then there's no such thing as envy.
Right.
Like I don't have an envious feeling about anything in my life. Like there's
It doesn't
not
serve you. At least that's how I
right.
feel,
Well, it's not a good energy. But I mean, honest to God, like I've realized the things that I can't win at, and I don't care. Like I just don't care.
Yeah.
You could be the best winner in every category, and okay, great, good for you. Like there's no envy whatsoever.
Like you said, that comes with maturity, though.
It comes with the maturity.
Your 23-year-old, 25-year-old self would not be that way.
Correct.
Right. So it comes with certain
Yes.
things, right? And we
Yeah.
all go through that.
Yeah.
So you're in a better place right now.
But I think if some people don't experience a level of satisfaction or fulfillment of their own personal success, and to the extent that they do, there's a certain false bravado that's sort of hoisting it up, where they still have envy. Right? Like where they still have the envy.
It's a weakness, I think.
It's a definite weakness. Yeah. And, I became good friends with a guy named Mark Bell.
Why is that so familiar?
Mark Bell, he's Mark Smelly Bell on social media. He has a podcast called The Power Project. He's he squatted 1,000 pounds. That sort of claim to fame in powerlifting. But I just become very close with him, having met him within the last year. And he said something funny is because he's like equanimity. He's like, David, equanimity. Just get to equanimity,
meaning?
where stuff doesn't matter. Like, okay, whatever. And I'm not there all the way.
Sure.
Someone makes a stupid comment on Instagram, I block them.
Yeah.
I don't ignore it. But he said to me, he goes, when I see someone acting like a jerk, I just think back, like at some point in that person's life, they didn't get the hug they needed. You know what I mean? Like something that simple.
Sure.
That's a good way to look at it. I got a quick question going back to this. We talked about in all I'm here. Well, not all I'm here. I think I know the answers, but I want to hear about it. In theory, or not even in theory, you've already tested it, so you know. But I'm curious if say I purchase those and purchase that,
right,
and I start using them. I put that on. I instantly felt what it could do to me.
Yes.
And like you just said, you already know it's going to increase while I'm wearing that, and while I'm using that, I'm going to increase my speed. I'm going to increase. Now, how long training wise would it take? So when I go to the combine, I'm not using those because they're not allowed as of right now. You know?
Right.
So how long would it take for me to train? Or like my daughter right now, she needs to go back to college, and we're working on. She's got a speed coach right now.
Yep.
We're working on it.
Right.
This is something that I'd like to introduce. That's something I'd like to introduce.
Right.
To not even test it out because I believe in things, and I know it's going to help in some. But if she has X amount of time and want to see the result, but when she goes back and they test, back at college.
Right.
What's the timeline? What are we looking at?
Months,
and I know neuroplasticity takes a certain amount of reps.
The answer from experience is it can take someone literally one session if they get it and feel and connect to it, and it can take someone weeks if they don't get that. And what will happen is the learning curve will continue to shorten and shorten and shorten as more people around you are succeeding, because there is the internal will that is even subconscious, where if you know it's going to help you and you saw it help your friend, you're going to make it help you, right? Versus, this is new, it's weird, like what am I doing? Yeah. Like, okay, what, right? So there's that aspect of it. But great story. Guy named Marlon Bird, he was MLB, and he coaches athletes and a lot of baseball guys, and they run the 60. And one of the kids had the prototype propulsors before the even ones that you felt. I see. And he asked his coach, he goes, Coach, can I run my 60 with these? And the coach was like, of course not. What the hell are you, stupid? He's like, no, you're not. And he goes, well, Coach, if I run the first one without it, can I run the second one with it? The coach is like, all right, do whatever you want, right? Kid runs like a 7.1.
Okay.
And then with him, he runs a 6.9.
Wow.
So if I had to run uphill, no question, 100% I want it. If I had to run 200 meters, absolutely no question I want it. If I had to run 40, I don't know. I'd have to test it out. You know what I mean?
The vest?
No, well, I don't think the vest is going to make me run faster. I think that the Goldilocks on these things, because now I can get more force.
Sure.
So, but here's my question. So, like the coach said, like, no, you're not going to do that because my daughter's in the same. She has to run the 60, 20 yard, 20 yard, 60 feet. That's their test. And they have to do it under a certain amount of time, or the coaches want that. So she trains with it.
Yeah.
Then she doesn't have the train. Is it going to mess with her mind, or is she going to be able to translate into that feel? Because it sounds like this is more of a feel thing. We're trying to gain that feel thing.
Absolutely.
It's not really recruiting more muscle.
What I would say is it's recruiting the musculature and the connective tissue in an advantageous manner if you have the technique correct. So every impact is, okay, my tissues just had to deal with something they weren't dealing with there, right? So I think it is training in that respect. What I would say is that everyone that we touch gets faster.
Like without it though. That's what I'm saying.
I'm good enough that I can give you advice that'll make you faster even without it, right? So but what I would say is that if you identify with the feel and you figure that out, what I say is, okay, that's the quantum performance jump, where literally in a day you're 1/10 of a second faster. Okay, but it's also now when it's head over foot and coiling the core, you're now on a better trajectory. So you get that quantum, which is the holy shit, this is amazing. But you're now on a path to greater gains in the future than you otherwise would have if you weren't consciously targeting with your intent what is actually optimal. Right, so that's the other aspect of it, and I think the big part of it will be once there is a critical mass, and you see, that team over there. I'm working with
all it takes is one team.
I'm working with a Kenyan distance running team. They have 41, 45 runners in the club. I've been working with them for a year and a half, 2 years now. I sent them over propulsors. I coach them virtually with technique. Every single one of these distance runners has PR'd and continues to PR. They set the course record at the Paris Half Marathon. They won they've won three different marathons. They have won first place. Another one just recently, they got first and second place. All right. Everyone is globally faster.
Are they running with?
They are running with the propulsors on their speed days on a dirt road in Kenya with the coach on a moped, right? They are.
But in the competition, are they?
No, not in the competition.
Has anybody ran a half marathon or a 5K or a 10K with?
Yeah. I don't think. Well, nobody of any great prominence has done that.
Sure.
I would be very interested to see, like, this is 4 ounces, this one. It's very small, very light. So the burden of carrying it is not much.
Right.
And then we'll work on some little handhold where you don't actually have to hold anything too. But I'd be interested to see an elite distance runner, and these have not been sent to Kenya yet, because they will be the first ones. If I tell them work on this, they will work on this.
I'm going to bring you somebody that is a patient of mine, and she is running 2,023 miles this year.
Oh, wow.
She's done several half marathons. She just did a marathon last weekend. She's not sponsored. She should be sponsored, really, in my opinion, with as much as she's running. This is the second or third year that she's run several thousand miles. And I gave her the first model of them with the BBs.
Yes.
And to the best of my ability, like playing telephone when you taught me, I tried to teach her.
Right.
So I'm sure there was something lost in translation. She used those old ones, and she said it helped her with her what was her specific word? Like gait pattern muscle memory.
Okay.
She's like, it just felt smoother, and like somehow I'm running differently, but she couldn't articulate what. She just felt like she was running smoother after having used those. I would love to have her come to you.
Absolutely.
And just because she's still running probably several hundred miles this year, if not a couple thousand.
Right.
And she might be down to she's PR'd a few times this year.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to see if she'd be willing to run with those on a shorter run.
From a timing standpoint, if you have some sensory thing that can improve your timing out to the 3 points past the decimal, who knows what that does over the course of the 20,000 steps? You know what I mean?
Right.
In terms of just, maybe it irradiates some other benefit as well. So, and sound is what we time with, right? Sound, the waves travel much slower than light, but sound is an actual physical encounter. Your eardrum is being impacted right? So I will react to a sound faster than I will react to a light.
Mhm.
So if you go bang, right, boom, I get going
Right away.
because it hit me.
Sure.
Where, if you're across the lake and the guy's hammering a nail, you'll see it and then you'll hear it. So the light wave, but you're not getting impacted by the light in the same way that you do with sound. And if you want the Army to go 3 more miles, put them in cadence, and you get pulled along, right? Yeah. You get pulled along with it. So there's something so profound about the audible feedback.
That's such a great point. I didn't think of that.
Which I have an idea, and we'll talk offline with that just to share. And
yeah,
with this, so we'll go, because you answered my question with that, and I would love to work with my daughter. She's got and she's actually playing in the Canadian Cup coming up. She's a part of Team Israel, the national team. So
wow.
So we're getting ready for that in July. But
an outlier athlete. For sure.
We got some
how old is she?
She's 19. She's the youngest on the national team right now. Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. But
and this is soccer?
This is softball.
Softball.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So on this, though, and she's working with an ex-MLB strength coach that was with a team. I don't want to mention names and stuff, but so really sports specific and stuff. And I know he would geek out on this kind of stuff. He probably already knows a lot about it. But on this, the vest, and I'm thinking for my patients too. So what are the applications of this? Because I felt what it felt like, and you just said not for running, and I was cool.
No. This is for running.
Okay.
No, what I'm saying is that if you put this on and tried to run your fastest 100-meter dash, I don't know that you will be faster with it.
Okay.
Right? So I don't know that.
Yeah.
With this one, you could.
Yeah.
You theoretically could.
I believe that.
Especially because I have a world-class, masters world-class guy who, at 200 meters, he's faster with this. Mm-hmm. And Phil McConkey from the New York Giants, I trained him for a few years, and he clocked faster with the propulsor than without it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's frame over frame footage. Right? So, okay, those are some examples of actual faster. Because this is in that distal extremity that is now like you're getting more than you could. This is a proximal burden where it can't go any faster than gravity and your center of mass can go anyway. But from a training effect, I had the sport of handball on the beach. Mm-hmm. So there's a guy I met through Instagram he won player of the year in that league, and he's now overseas somewhere competing. He came in the lab and he put this on and he bounced around and did all his moves for 10 minutes or maybe 5 minutes. And when you take this thing off, there is a feeling of like potentiation that is ridiculous.
The minute
ridiculous. So for someone like your daughter, you would do, let's say today's session is you want to be able to run from home plate to first base faster. Mm-hmm. You'd do a bunch of stuff in this, you'd run a few reps in this, and then you'd take it off. Mm-hmm. And now let's see how fast you can get there.
Yeah.
That would be, and the best answer I can give you is I don't know yet because we haven't had the reps to really scrutinize how we're going to get the most of it.
Yeah, I can only imagine because we use parachutes, the whole parachute idea for the resistance training. We use all kinds of stuff like that. This one
is such a unique training effect because of the time factor. Right? If I add mass to your body, you're going to get stronger.
Sure.
But you might not get faster and you might not become more powerful.
Right.
That's the great unknown. Right? But with this one, you're getting a plyometric effect that, again, like I wear the thing all day, every day.
Just walking, running errands.
Well, and then I can, anytime, like if I'm just walking, okay, I'm 12 pounds heavier.
Sure.
Right?
But you're
just getting stronger. But yes, if I put any spring in my step, now I'm potentiating that. And if I, decide, I'm going to bolt over there, bing, 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 and I take it off and it's just like, wow. And like I said, 3 inches. At 53 years old, like 10 feet looks like 11 now.
Sure.
Right? It's a whole different story.
Yeah.
And when you're not confident that you can get high, you don't want to jump.
Sure.
Jumping, it becomes unfun.
I get it,
And when in the lab, I have, where it says research and development, you go back in there?
Yeah.
Those letters, Like I knew where I could touch on those letters.
Yeah.
And I was wearing this thing for 2 or 3 weeks, and I took that thing off, and I was like, boom, and I was way above the letters.
That's great.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is fun.
Right.
I was like, this is actually fun.
Yeah, you got some hang time.
Wait, I got up higher than I could get.
Yeah.
And it was just that feeling of exuberance of like, wow, I want to do more of those.
Yeah.
Whereas, every year you're going less, it's like, this is not fun anymore.
I would love to have some NFL wide receivers and DBs wear this one day in pregame as they're doing warm-ups, just for, like you said, when you unhitch the parachute.
Right, that potentiation.
You wear this just during warm-ups.
What I see is like football players like wearing this in like regularly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right,
like if I'm not in pads, well, then I want this thing on, kind of a deal.
How far are you, David, if you don't mind me asking, if a team wanted to say, hey, we want to try this for the season, how far are you away from having 50 units of these to be able to
I'll be able to have 50 units, in relatively short order. What's going to end up happening, because we're doing this in-house.
Sure.
Because I can go a lot faster in-house than I can building molds and doing all this stuff.
Of course.
Right? And this thing is functional.
Yeah.
It'll only get better, but this thing is just ridiculously functional as it is. And there's also that fun aspect for me.
Yeah.
And what I want to do as well is it's a prototype, and you have to join our innovation group to get it.
Right.
So what I want to do is
like-minded people.
To have like people who want to be there, right? There's no haters whatsoever, and you guys are experiencing this. Give us your feedback, and that's really what I want to use this as a vehicle to build this group of people. What you're starting to see now is you're starting to see this coiling core sort of, enter into, Exos now talks about coiling the core, whereas, zip up, brace it stiff. Okay, well, now we're changing.
Sure.
Right?
So modifications slowly.
Yeah. And, and I think I was loud enough and a big enough jerk for a couple of years where I don't think anyone is going to be able to claim credit for the things that I've contributed.
Man, they shouldn't.
Well, but it's what happens in our industry.
No,
you see that over there. Oh yeah, I did that. That's part and parcel.
Well, that gets back to my point of you're so good, in my opinion, of documenting the journey.
Yeah.
The mistakes of it, the progress of it, and everything along the way of it. And not everybody does that, and I think there's power in that.
Well, for me, again, it's process for me, because I do have some very loyal followers that are growing. Mm-hmm. And some of the prominence of these people and the prowess of these people is, at the highest level.
Yeah.
When Vitor Belfort or Shanji Ribeiro says, you're a genius and, I learned something profound from you.
Yes.
Okay, well, you can't get much higher. Shanji Ribeiro is one of the greatest jiu-jitsu guys ever. Right? I taught him to coil in 2017, and he put it into his jiu-jitsu and he got better.
Man, that's amazing.
Okay.
That's great.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he had a seminar here in San Diego, and we got our lines crossed, so he told me the wrong time because I was going to come do it.
Gotcha.
I show up an hour late because I, said 11 and not 10 or whatever. Sure. I come in. There's 200 gis on the mat. 200. Wow. And Shanji stands up. He's teaching the neck technique. He looks over. He goes, there's my genius. And I'm just like, you could not be a more made man than a white belt.
There's going to be a tipping point where some professional team, in my opinion, adapts and uses, whether it's the vest or the pro pulsers.
I think what's going to happen is once they discover one, then they'll sort of shed light on them all.
Sure.
And I think, and Phil Knight changed running, the paradigm itself, by padding dysfunction, making dysfunction more comfortable.
Makes sense.
Right? So that's essentially what he did.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not going to worry about the biomechanical error. I'm just going to make it more comfortable. Right? The shoe dog.
Sure.
What I want to do is, my first phase is the fitness/sports performance products that become just a necessity. It just, it's just a tool in the toolbox that you now got to use.
Yeah.
And that gives me the ubiquitous, and that gives you a lot of cash flow.
Yeah.
And then I want to go into footwear and apparel. where you need a lot more money to pony up to do feet.
Sure.
I mean, there's so many sizes. There's so many molds. There's so many returns. Footwear you can make a lot more money in footwear, but it's a very intimidating thing to do.
Sure.
Right? But I have very good ideas on it, and I've been working on it for years, sort of under the radar.
I know you have, yeah.
Right? And then the third phase is surfaces. What do human beings interact with in the three-dimensional world, and what if we could make it better? So now you don't have any restriction. What if there's a better toothbrush handle, or what if there's a better, office desk, or what if?
I was wondering where you were going with the surfaces.
Yeah, surfaces.
Makes sense.
And and a matter of fact, last night I was ideating, oh my God, I think I might be able to do an insole. Because the way I want to get started in footwear is in slides.
Mm-hmm.
NFL guys come in on the summer practice, they're all wearing the slides.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You don't want to be
And slides, all you got to make is a small, a medium, a large and extra large,
Sure.
and an XXL, right?
Sure.
So you don't have all the sizes. You don't have male, female. It's just slides,
Yeah.
right? So it's an easier way to enter. And if I can make like a recovery slide, right?
Smart.
A comfort slide, right?
Yeah.
But now, just yesterday, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to break out the protractor because I think I might be able to make an insole. That's even faster.
Mm-hmm. Then the
Right?
slide, yeah.
And all you got to do is just create a better mousetrap that people are like, wow, I actually like it.
I love it.
You know what I'm saying? So, because again, I look at this thing in the big, big picture, and I want to be up in heaven. I don't want to look down and be like, yes. I don't want to look down and see this dystopic nightmare of what the hell did happen to humanity.
Yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
that might still be the case, David.
Well, I mean, who knows? But listen, you got to keep punching.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
New Jersey means that you never quit.
You know what I love is that it's a constant pursuit of betterment, which Dustin and I talk about often, and a lot of athletes do, but you really, epitomize that by continuing to iterate and trying to improve. We could talk for hours.
Yeah, right. I gotta go help my daughter with the paper.
Yeah, we have less than a few minutes here, so I'm gonna wrap up. I want to know if you have any questions, and
I know we sort of bounced all over the
No,
place.
it's good. We came full circle. No,
I would like to ask if
how-
you'd like to come on, every 6 months as you
Yeah,
make progress, or
absolutely.
even more frequently.
Oh,
because
absolutely. We're right
honestly,
down the road.
I want to talk about soul steps. I want to talk about so many other things, but it's there's a lot of things. So we'll have other sessions.
Well, and then just fun stories too.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's a lot of really fun stories.
I want to hear that, and I think it's important for other people to hear that too, because it's not success isn't a straight line.
Oh,
it
God.
is a lot of roadblocks, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of failure.
Oh,
And I know you've dealt with a lot of
Oh,
that,
my
and
gosh.
ridicule and criticism, and so I want to get into that at a later date too. But I want to thank you for making time, and
thank you.
also just for continuing to, I call it hiking uphill,
Okay,
which
right,
is just
right.
like you're trying to get to the top, and
Yeah.
that shit is not linear. It's
Nope.
not downhill.
Yeah,
it's
sometimes you
uphill.
step on something and it slides down a little bit.
Yeah, you lose a step,
That's right. Well, this has been a real pleasure, and Dustin, so nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, and I look forward to continuing our talks and
Absolutely.
continuing, throwing out ideas with you, and this is fun. I want to talk next time more clinical too,
Mhm.
and because I personally, a lot of my practice is neurologic reeducation. I know that gets thrown out, but I'm constantly doing kind of like what you do, but with my patients, I'm challenging them constantly out of the norm, right?
Mhm.
So, but getting them game ready for life, right?
Yes,
So
for
like
life.
I always talk about, hey, like if there was a fire right now, and we had to get through, or we're in a crowded mall and we had to hurtle over things, roll over things, get over, or I have a wall in my back of my office, a sliding door. We had to get over that wall. We'll get over, but how are you going to be on the other end?
Yeah.
That's what I always talk about.
Right.
Or if you had to help somebody up, you'd be able to do it, because
Yep.
I had a situation where I had to do that in an emergency. And there was 4 other people trying to help this person. Nobody could do it. I went over there, got in my good form. Luckily, I had trained millions of times,
Yep.
helped pick them up, and it was amazing. I got back in the car and I said, "That's why we do it." Told
That's
my
why you
kids.
do it.
But then it started making me think I got to get all my patients, everybody I can touch and communicate with,
Yes.
and I believe we can do a bigger global.
That's what
right,
we-
not
yes,
just people
exactly.
coming in my door. I want to do
Right.
global, right?
Well, if you think
And-
about with AI and what's happening, sort of this thing that's happening, it gives us an opportunity to make it Shangri-La.
Yeah,
sure.
And then the professions become the human interaction. Do you want a robot massaging you, or you want a person, right? Do you want,
Right.
So I think that I think that the human contact and that intimacy of a nervous system interacting with another nervous system, that's why I think
Energy
jujitsu and these
exchange,
things, like, you get such a good feedback. And relating to, since I don't have anything that I'm competing for, like there's no sport or thing that I care to, on a certain date, be a certain way, I just want to be useful in crisis right now ready.
Yeah.
I don't have to foam roll for 20 minutes to go put out the fire, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna go get the job done. If my hamstring gets shot with a bullet, I still won't be able to move fast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, that's what life is.
Exactly. And I always talk about, like, hey, if we help somebody and we were able to do it, how are we going to be afterwards, right? That's the more important thing. Because when fight or flight happens and the adrenaline kicks in, people, I lifted a car. Okay, but you're tore up after. Like I said, they're going to have a parade for you. Do you want to be wheeled in the parade, or do you want to walk proudly in the parade? That's what I say. We got to get you ready to be able to walk proudly for the heroics you did.
Sure.
Not just because you did it.
Yeah.
So
that's
what I want to talk about. I see applicable in my practice neurologic benefits, because I'm constantly challenging my patients. And so next time we meet up in 6 weeks or whatever, I wanna maybe pick your brain on.
That sounds great.
Let's have fun. Let's whiteboard this out. Let's game plan on. Let's just get creative on.
That sounds
fantastic. I know you do it on a daily, but I'd like to come down to your lab and check it out. I geek out on that kind of stuff. Me and geek out on that kind of stuff. We want to try.
I love geeking out. I really like what you said about this, march in your own parade, because like Evel Knievel, you set up the ramp, but what about the landing ramp?
What's going to happen at the other side of it? Right.
That's great.
Well, good episode today. For everybody listening, thank you for tuning in. We will be back next week. We're back on the regular. We've had a few changes in life and in the office.
I'm liking the new studio, bro.
Thank you. Yeah, we're in a new spot. We'll break it down next week to everybody, but we're settled in, and so we're back on the regular, and looking forward to it. I've really missed our conversations the couple of weeks that we weren't able to, but we'll sign off for now. We'll get this thing edited and get this out to the people soon. This is Second Opinion Sports Medicine Podcast. I'm Dr. Dokel.
I'm Dr. Glass.
And it's been a pleasure, Dustin. We had Mr. David Weck in today with a lot of interesting topics. A true innovator in my mind. And I hope we continue to have interesting conversations with him.
Agreed.
But until next week, we're signing off. Everybody be safe, be healthy, and we'll talk to you soon.